Maybe it's because I have to go to the bathroom. Maybe it's because there are phantom flies biting my knees and I'm scratching myself with a flashlight. And maybe that's making it worse or better. I don't know. But a comment, there are times where you do not want to hear, and probably it wouldn't be good for you to hear, a pastor's experience in the pulpit of this or that. And perhaps there's times where it might be helpful. Might be helpful because you see the pastor is relatable. As someone who God has saved, and yet is still an object of salvation, a trophy of grace. Perhaps not. Perhaps you hear your pastor and his experiences and they cause thee to err. I don't know. I think you should be very gracious to your pastor. They are going to be judged more harshly, so I don't think you need to remind your pastor of his responsibility. I don't think you need to do any of that. I think you just pray, especially married couples. I think married couples are very savvy on this because they have someone to talk to and back and forth. They could talk about the pastor in such a way that's glorifying to God. Hey, this. Well, let's just pray. That can be the conclusion every time that you bring up the pastor. I think that would honor the pastor in private. Where the pastor's not like, oh my goodness, these people think I'm an idiot. These people think this or that. It's like, I have no idea if I'm getting through to them. But then you find out that after every time that they talk about you at the dinner table, they prayed for you. I just saw a note. The guy says, a pastor saying he didn't want his congregation to pray for him. I guess I probably could. You could understand that. But dude, you're in the middle of an ancient battle. Okay? Yes, the Lord Jesus publicly and openly put to shame the rulers and powers and principalities of the air. Okay? There are things that people long ago suffered with that you probably never will because of the revelation of the gospel and the benefits that you've enjoyed therein and the time that is taken since there of the customs of faith that we, maybe take for granted. But you better believe that pastor is going through struggles. You just stay close to them and, eventually they may share one with you. Or maybe they won't. It's not like they're carrying the mantle like the Lord of the Rings. Frodo, it's like where he ends up turning in, where he snaps at the end. He's like, my precious, and Samwise Gamgee, he's like, I may not be able to carry the ring, but I'll carry you. It's like that's way too much cinema. There's nothing like that going on, where the pastor's carrying on this heavy burden, and it's he ends up turning into the Gollum, the same thing that he's preaching against. I don't think that it's like that. But, there's just these stories, Bunyan gets up there and it's like he's preaching in a bag, and then the temptation of this or this, that thought comes into you, and it's no, it's he forgot where he was. And then he says, no, yeah. And the tempter came and said, how can you preach this? You are guilty of this too. And he says, yea, no, I will preach it nonetheless. And with all his might, he came against this sin or that sin, or preached condemnation or hell or, judgment, whatever. Not whatever, but all those things. And eventually came into the place where he started preaching the righteousness of the Lord Jesus Christ. Eventually came into the steady and open paths, the plains of the pastures of grace, where he was able to preach and souls were fed, and those that were under temptation and under conviction were refreshed and strengthened in the Lord, and assurance and all these other great gems and jewels and pearls and the comforts of the gospel. But pastors, he says not everyone should preach or teach. I think that's a great lesson. I'm sure your church would be more than willing and happy to receive anybody or take anybody under their wing
that believe that they were called, or were sensing a calling, or seeking a calling, or interest in pursuing it. You get to the pulpit, it's like, there's some experiences that you probably want to share, but at the same time, people, they I think they really want to just hear from the word of the Lord. It's like in times of famine, those experiences can get really annoying. And I know that all pastors, and there's things that you just don't need to say, because I know the pastors are conscious of that. And some won't. Some really are heavily on experiences, but it's like, I don't want to be on that train.
I don't want to be on the train where like I'm bound to have my experiences of God bound to the pastors. It's like the scriptures say that all are same under the Lord, and there's shepherds. There's one shepherd, and then there's under shepherds. So there are definitely different roles in the church, different billets. Oh, that feels so good. Oh, it's making me not want to go to the bathroom anymore. But you may disagree. It's like, when you get to the, on some days you really want to hear from the Lord, so you just take whatever. Honestly, whatever you give me, I'll glorify your name and bless you for it. Maybe you get to a part, you're like, well, that's probably not for me. And you just figure you